Hello artists, it's Mrs. Treat here today. We're going to start with a story called Sky Color, and then we're going to tie it to our activity. So let's go ahead and get started with the book Sky Color. Marisol was an artist. She loved to draw and paint. She even had her very own art gallery. Not all her art hung in a gallery. Much of it was shared with the world. She painted posters to share her ideas she believed in. At school, Marisol was famous for her creative clothes, her box of art supplies, and her belief that everybody was an artist. Yes, Marisol was an artist through and through. So when her teacher told the class they were going to paint a mural for the library, Marisol couldn't wait to begin. The classroom buzzed with the sound of brainstorming. The students talked and sketched. Together they made a great big drawing. Then they marched into the library. I'll paint a fish. I'll paint one too. I'll paint the ocean. Marisol shouted, I'll paint the sky. Marisol rummaged through the box of paint but could not find any blue. Well, how am I going to paint the sky without blue paint? The bell rang and it was time for to put their brushes down for the day. As she climbed aboard the bus, Marisol kept wondering. All the way home, she stared out the window. The sun lowered closer to the horizon. Do you see any blue? Later at home, Marisol watched the day turn to night. That night, Marisol settled into a deep dream. She drifted through the sky, swirls with color. The colors mixed, making too many to count. In the morning, Marisol stood waiting for the bus in the rain. The sky was not blue. She smiled. At school, Marisol raced to the library and grabbed a dish and began adding colors, this one and that one, and she swirled the brush together to make new colors. Marisol began to paint on the wall. A boy asked, what color is that? That, Marisol said, that is sky color. Oh, look at how beautiful that is. I loved that she did something else other than a blue sky. How creative was Marisol? Let's see what you can come up with today's activity. All right, friends, we just wrapped up the book Sky Color, where Marisol was stumped about the color blue in the sky. And as we learned, she discovered that the sky is not always blue. So we're going to be inspired by her painting today. So we're going to need our watercolors, and we're going to do a tiny bit of drawing today, but more of the drawing is going to come next week because this is going to be a 2-week activity. So I want you to start with your white piece of paper. I have got a messy mat underneath just to make sure I don't get my watercolors everywhere. And I'm gonna have a white colored or crayon because I'm gonna use a little bit of that today, but we are gonna be drawing one or two dragonflies because we're gonna have our kind of an outdoor scene. And of course we want this beautiful sky, and we see these beautiful dragonflies up in the sky. So if you think about the center of a dragonfly, they are very, very thin little creatures. So way towards the top of your page, you're going to draw a really narrow body, and then they have double wings on either side. So we're going to draw the double wings, kind of like a teardrop shape. Drawing the second one slightly larger. Now you can just draw one, but make sure if you draw more than one, maybe two, draw it towards the top of your page because we're going to be filling up the bottom with the page with other things later on. So we want to make sure that we leave room. If they get covered up a little bit too, that's no big deal. So I am drawing a second one towards the top. Here are my dragonflies, super simple. Now the crayon comes in is actually, I'm gonna color in the wings because the wings, as we know, are very, very see-through. And we're gonna be laying down color today with colored watercolors, and I don't want my watercolor to go on the wings of my dragonfly. So I'm gonna use my white crayon to color them in. I'm making sure I press pretty hard to get that waxiness from my crayon transferred to my paper so there will not be any color on those areas. Now, if a little bit of color transfers, no worries. I'm not going to worry too much about it. But right now, I'm just simply focused on getting the wings colored in with our white crayon. And if you don't track a crayon down, it's no big deal. We can leave them, paint around it or paint over it. It's no big deal. All right, next step is to get a hold of our watercolors, some fresh water and our paintbrush, because we're going to be inspired just like Marisol by creating a beautiful background of wonderful colors. Now, as we can use a lot of variety, because the sky, as we've seen, Kansas is known for their beautiful sunrises and sunsets, and there is not, in the evenings or the morning, they're not always blue skies, but that doesn't mean we can't add some blue. I'm going to use a range of the rainbow. The only color I'm probably going to jump over is going to be green. A lot of times you're not going to see green in the sky. The only time you'll ever hear the sky was a greenish color is possibly during a storm. So I'm going to avoid the green color, but that's not to say that we can't add green in later. Well, right now I'm going to be mixing up my colors to ensure I've got some beautiful color choices to lay down in my background. Got a little bit of green in my yellow. I'll have to clean that out. All right, let's go ahead and start laying down some just light washes of these colors. And there's not going to be rhyme or reason. I'm just going to lay down color a little bit anywhere and everywhere without thinking much through as to where I'm laying it down. Because it's just going to be splashes of color, just like Marisol's, in a variety of ways. As you can see, it's being pushed away. Do you see how the wax is not allowing it to go onto those wings, which is exactly what I wanted to have happen. So I'm pleased to see that. Some yellow in my skies. You can overlap. Remember, I want the colors to overlap a little bit, but if I blend them too much, the colors will get lost and it's just going to create kind of a muck of one color. And I want some nice variation of color in my project, so I'm going to just overlap them a little, but not enough to lose each individual color. Oops, a little bit of purple jumped onto my yellow. Purple and yellow do not mix, but that's okay. I'll just let it bleed out. I'm not even going to touch it, because that way it'll just be. I love how this is blending right here. It's just kind of bleeding from one to the other. Maybe I'll put a little bit of blue in there. No, of course, if you put blue next to yellow and they touch a little bit, you're going to get a little green. So I'm going to try not to have those two run into each other. All right. So we've got this beautiful background that we need to set aside because we're going to add a wonderful creature to this as well. So if you would please set this aside and we will come together next week to do step 2 of our project.